excuse me,
That's
technical.
Cody to make us live.
Cody, can you make it live? Thanks. Rod?
Yeah.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Marathon official plan update and special meeting this morning. Call the meeting to order at 9:03 a.m. Any disclosure of interest this morning? Hearing none. We have a delegation this morning with WSP. They were presenting the town's final draft of the official plan this morning, and Anita and Jill will be discussing the proposed plan. Of course, we'll have an open house later on this afternoon as well to have the public have an opportunity to have a view of that. So we'll open the floor up to Anita or Jill, and Tim, you can walk us through with them, and anytime you need to step in, be my guest. Thank you. The show is yours, ladies.
Thank you. Okay, I will share my screen presentation. Okay, is that visible in chambers?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for confirming. Okay. Well, good morning, Your Worship, members of council, members of community might be in attendance at today's meeting. So my name is Jill McDonald. I'm a project manager and planner with the consulting firm WSP. I'm based out of Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm very happy to be here today with my colleague Anita Sott, who is the WSP deputy project manager for this project, and she's based in Ottawa. So Anita and I have been working with the town of Marathon to undertake a review and update of the town's existing official plan and zoning bylaw, which was initiated in the spring of last year. Not here today, but I would like to acknowledge other members of our project team who have very much contributed significantly to our efforts to date. So that would include our project planner, Tim Jacobs, also of WSP in Ottawa, our strategic advisor, Courtney Lawrence with WSP in Halifax, who led the housing needs assessment component of the project, which was completed in late 2025, and she presented alongside Anita at the special meeting of council last fall. Also part of our team is Tom McCormick of Metro Economics and Brandon Tourangeau of CJS Spatial Solutions. We've been working closely with the town chief billing official and billing services and economic development manager, Tim Allen, over the past year to prepare a draft official plan, which will result in a new official plan for all lands within the town's municipal boundary. So for this morning's presentation, we will begin with a brief overview of the purpose of today's statutory meeting and the review process to date. And then Anita and I will provide a summary overview of the final draft official plan and schedules. We will then conclude with next steps in the process, after which we will both be happy to answer questions from council and the public alongside town staff. So today's meeting is the statutory public meeting, which is required under Section 17 of the Ontario Planning Act, and to present the draft official plan to the community and seek feedback. And this meeting really represents the last public engagement meeting before the final official plan is prepared and presented to council for consideration of adoption. So just to kind of walk through the review process for the OP, a review of the Marathon official plan was initiated by the town in spring of 2025. So the town's current official plan was approved by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs in 2016. And over the past 10 years, there have been numerous legislative changes in the planning world, as well as a new provincial planning statement that came in 2024. So the town's official plan must be updated and reviewed to be consistent with this new documentation, as well as align with provincial objectives and the local context of the town. The new official plan that we will be presenting today has been prepared for a planning horizon of 25 years to the year 2051. Once the new official plan comes into effect, it will not need to be reviewed for another 10 years, but the town can undertake an amendment at any time. And then just on the aside for the zoning bylaw review, the Planning Act also requires the zoning bylaw be updated within 3 years of a new official plan coming into effect. And that's to ensure that the zoning bylaw conforms with the policies of the official plan. So as mentioned, we are concurrently undertaking a review of the zoning bylaw, and the draft zoning bylaw will be presented at a statutory public open house in Marathon in a couple weeks' time on July 23rd. This slide provides an overview of the work done to date in lead up to today's meeting for the official plans. So we started in last spring with a background review phase, which is reported in the final background report. Also alongside that, our colleague Courtney had led the preparation of the housing needs assessment, and that took place, the work for that from spring and wrapped up in late fall. The final policy directions and recommendation support was prepared, and the policy directions for the official plan were presented last fall at a special meeting of council. And then over the course of winter of this year, we've worked closely with Tim to develop the draft official plan. So the first draft was prepared in January. Then that was the version that was presented at the open house in late May. And today we'll be walking through the final draft official plan, which is dated for June. For the engagement program for reviews, we've undertaken significant local engagement and as well as provincial engagement to inform a project. So at the outset last spring, a one-window pre-consultation meeting with the Ontario Ministries was held in April. So at that meeting, our team obtained comments from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and other provincial ministries to confirm required changes that are needed in the official plan to align with provincial requirements and direction. At that meeting, the ministries provided specific comments on, changes to mapping, the schedules, to reflect provincial data like abandoned mine sites, and then more overarching policy changes like those to address things like housing affordability and transportation. As well, our team contacted local Indigenous communities to share information regarding the initiation of a project, and were invited to participate. And we have kept the Indigenous community contacts apprised of major milestones throughout the reviews, and they will continue to be circulated, notices and opportunities to comment as the project moves into the concluding stages. A public open house and visioning questionnaire were conducted last summer, and that comprised the initial engagement activities, which informed the land use vision and identification of key land use policy issues affecting the town. As I mentioned, the special meeting of council was held last fall to prevent the draft policy directions for the official plan. And then finally, most recently, a statutory public open house was held in Marathon in late May of this year to present the draft official plan. So we had 10 members of the community come out to that event, and we had received comments verbally for that open house, and then one written comment was received as follow-up. And I'll just provide a highlight of the comments that we received at the open house. So there was interest indicated in garden suites locally, some clarifications around tiny homes, including the proposed removal of minimum dwelling unit areas, comments around wildfire and emergency preparedness, and then other site-specific inquiries. So as part of the official plan review process, we were required to submit the draft official plan to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, who then circulated the draft to the Ontario partner ministries for initial review and comment. And their review is referred to as the 90-day review, where initial comments are provided. So this slide provides a highlight of the comments that were received, and our team and Tim met with MMAH staff in May just to go over the comments in more detail. So just at a high level, the comments from MMAH pertained primarily to the growth management section of proposed settlement area expansions, which Anita will be walking through in greater detail further on in the presentation. Policy revisions around group homes, just to ensure that there are no restrictions on group homes to be consistent with the Human Rights Code of Ontario and Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. More high-level updates to reference new acts, such as the Species Conservation Act, which replaced the previous Endangered Species Act, and then updates to names of required plans and studies that are required for planning applications in accordance with the ERA posting that closed earlier this spring. We also received comments from the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism, which had detailed red lines for policies as they relate to changes to the provincial planning statement and Ontario Heritage Act. And then the Ministry of Transportation also provided comments with respect to the suggestions to add policies that address potential freight traffic growth that may be associated with the Hemlo Mine and the planned port and generation mine. So at this point in the presentation, I will pass it over to Nita, and she will take us through the beginning of the overview of the final draft official plan.
Thanks, Jill. So as Jill mentioned, the final draft official plan is dated to June of this year, and it does contain an updated document format and structure as compared to the town's existing official plan. So some of the key policy sections that have been updated to ensure that the official plan is consistent with the new provincial policy statement include a dedicated section that details the lands that are proposed to be added to the town's settlement area boundary. And your current official plan refers to that as the urban service area boundary, generally where municipal water and wastewater services are available. There is also a new section where all general policies regarding housing are found, and this includes new and updated policies for housing types such as additional dwelling units, for example, basement, upper story apartments or apartments in detached structures on a lot that contains a single, semi, or townhouse dwelling. There are also policies for affordable and attainable housing, as well as tiny homes. And to be consistent with the provincial planning statement, we've added new sections to address alternative and renewable energy systems, as well as wildland fire hazards, including provincial mapping of wildland fire forest types. The official plan also contains updated sections for each land use designation, which is established and illustrated on the schedules or maps of the official plan, and some policy overlay areas, along with the actual updated schedules themselves, which illustrate these designations and overlays. Next slide, please, Jill. The final draft official plan has been available for the general public's review on the town's project webpage since June 11th. And there is a red line version that has been published, which shows all of the revisions that have been made to the text of the town's existing 2016 official plan. So this is just a bit of a legend to orient folks to how the plan revisions are laid out. Any text that has been added is in blue and underlined. Any text that has been deleted is in red strike through, and we have highlighted in gray the titles of new sections or text that has been moved from other sections of the existing official plan. Next slide. In terms of its general table of contents and structure, the official plan is comprised of 11 sections, establishing things like the overall vision statement for the town over the next 25 years, as well as guiding principles for the town's growth and development over this time. We have a section on growth management policies, how the town is expected to grow in terms of its population, housing, and employment over the next 25 years. And then a section on general land use policies that apply across the town, and a section that establishes the specific land use designations, for example, residential, commercial, industrial, and policy overlays, and those associated policies for development in those designations. We also have policies that relate to the protection of the natural environment, the town's infrastructure and transportation networks, and implementation policies, which is related to the Planning Act and planning and development applications primarily. Next slide. So as Jill mentioned, a key member of our consultant project team was Metro Economics and Mr. Tom McCormick, who prepared population dwelling and employment projections to support the overall official plan review and the housing needs assessment completed for the town. Metro Economics developed two scenarios to project future growth in the town over the 25-year planning period to the year 2051. The first scenario is referred to as the base case, which projects to 2051 based on annual historical growth trends, largely based on census data from 2001 to 2021, the year of the last census. Under the base case, Marathon's population is projected to decrease by 453 persons to a total population of 2,805 persons by 2051. And as commonly experienced by other Ontario municipalities, this is owing primarily to an aging population. Similarly, as expected, dwelling needs would also decrease by about 97 dwellings, and total employment would decrease by 92 jobs, although it is important to note that there were some specific industries like mining and health and social services that are projected to increase overall. The other scenario is referred to as the high case scenario, and that primarily reflects the potential impacts of the proposed generation mining project, which, if constructed, we understand is expected to generate between 400 and 450 jobs in the town over the lifespan of the mine over the next 13 to 15 years. In addition, the Port of Marathon is expected to support more than 20 full-time jobs, and under the high case, with all of these factors factored in, Marathon's population is projected to increase by about 1,587 people to a total of 4,845 people by 2051, with the majority of that growth occurring quite short term, largely due to the generation mining project. And that growth would be focused between the years 2029 and 2031. So over that time, it is projected that the town would need to accommodate 779 additional dwelling units, and total employment growth would be projected to add about 815 jobs to the year 2051. Next slide. So part of the official plan review was to determine whether the town has sufficient land available within the existing urban service area, or as the province refers to it, the settlement area, to accommodate that future growth. So Jill and I, WSP, completed an analysis of existing vacant residential and employment lands. And employment lands refers to the town's industrial lands that are currently designated and available for future development within the town's urban service area. Again, this is where municipal water and wastewater are generally available. So under the base case projections, given the overall decrease in growth and population, it was found that the town does have sufficient residential lands and vacant employment or industrial lands within the existing urban service area or settlement area boundary. And this again is the sort of no growth or low growth scenario. In consultation with town staff, previously the base case scenario projections were applied in our background reporting to the vacant land supply analysis that was referenced also in the first draft official plan sent to the ministry for review, because overall it was agreed that the high case scenario included several unknowns, including whether the generation mining project would proceed to construction and how many employees would be accommodated through work camps or other workforce housing, rather than requiring the town to designate additional residential lands for new private dwellings within the town settlement area. While the high case employment growth projections also showed significant growth, it was assumed that much of this growth would occur through jobs generated at the mine site, rather than needing to be entirely accommodated on industrial lands within the town's settlement area boundary. So we did meet with the ministry to go over their comments on the review of the draft official plan, and they did recommend, and we have since revised the final draft official plan to reflect the high case scenario as the basis of the proposed settlement area expansion. So this assists in rationalizing our proposed expansion of the town settlement area to include new lands, to bring in new vacant lands for future growth. And this is done largely because this official plan review is an opportunity for the town to prepare for the likelihood of the generation mining project proceeding. We understand that while construction has not been confirmed, the project has received all provincial permits and is considered shovel-ready, pending some remaining funding needs. So it's prudent now that the town does prepare for a potential population boom and the associated demands that could be brought in for additional housing and commercial and social services with an increased population, whether that population is housed close to the mine site or within the town's urban service area, as well as the development of spin-off industries within the town that would result from mine construction and operations over the next many years.
So Anita, are you taking questions along the way, or are you gonna wait till the end?
I'm happy to take questions. They just might be covered potentially in some of the future information that's coming on
So
subsequent
that's great, but I'm
slides.
gonna ask one in regards to the
Yep.
industrial site acquisition of lands under the crown. Because most of the lands outside the settlement area, the urban center of Marathon is crown land. When you're talking to the ministry staff, what was their ideals around obtaining those lands and the timelines within obtaining of those lands?
So the proposed expansion lands that we had identified were town owned. So we did not enter into conversations on crown land disposition to add that to the town settlement area at this time, because we were working with Tim and we understand there's quite a lot of hectares, as you'll see on one of our maps coming up, that the town already owns, and that could be easily serviced with potentially municipal water and sewer and also transportation connections. So that conversation hasn't happened as part of this official plan review. But I do believe that Tim has spoken to us about past conversations that town staff have had on the crown land disposition process. So I'm not sure if Tim would like to add any comments there.
I can add, we did start looking at the crown land disposition to expand the existing industrial park. But within this exercise, we found it more practical to request the industrial lands located across from the golf course is town-owned property, not zoned industrial yet, but proposed to be industrial. So we've calculated a boundary that then they'll explain in a future slide. We've calculated a boundary that would suit those industrial needs.
Yeah, and I will be showing you that map right now. So this is, I appreciate it is a little bit small, but it is included in the final draft official plan as well. So to prepare for the high case scenario potential growth, the final draft official plan does propose a settlement area expansion. So the boundary of that settlement area on the map on this slide is shown in red. It's the bold red line that's surrounding the built up area of the town. And the expansion does propose to add several parcels that are municipally owned vacant lands, and it is a total of 38.1 gross hectares across the various parcels that could potentially be serviced in the future and made available for residential, industrial, and commercial development if needs arise. So these proposed expansion lands are labeled 1 through 4 in the black circles on the map and are generally located at the north and south ends of the existing built-up area. So it is, the expansion is a natural progression outwards of the town's existing boundary. There is an area to the west of, and maybe Jill, I don't know if you can run your map along the Penn Lake Phase 3. That area was formerly recommended as a potential residential expansion area. It is also owned by the town, and it would be the site of a future Phase 3 of the Penn Lake subdivision. So we did discuss this area at our special meeting of council in October 2025. But through the high case scenario projections, we determined that including it through this official plan review is premature because it greatly would exceed the land needs that the town requires at this time based on the high case dwelling projections. It's a very large parcel of land that can accommodate hundreds of units, and it would be very challenging to have the province agree to bring it in now when the projections don't include that many dwelling units. So Phase 2, which is the yellow lands to the east of that, that's already within the town's urban service area. And there is a lot of vacant residential land for the future Phase 2 of that residential subdivision. I did also want to say, though, if there is an incredible need for residential lands in the future that's unprecedented, the town can always initiate an official plan amendment and speak with ministry staff to initiate the process to expand the settlement area boundary to bring in those Phase 3 lands at the time that they are needed. There is also an additional parcel of residential land that is included in our proposed expansion of the settlement area boundary. So this is at the bottom of Stevens Avenue, and it is about 1.18 gross hectares. And it's assumed that a significant proportion of the projected housing growth in that high case scenario would be accommodated through workforce housing or work camps within the Generation Mining site, which is located outside of the town's boundary. So between that and the Stevens Avenue parcel, the calculations show that that is enough residential land, as well as the vacant residential land available in phase 2 to accommodate those dwelling projections. In terms of industrial land, which Tim was just speaking about, we are proposing to bring in parcel 2, which is the light purple on the map. That is about between 25 and 26 gross hectares of land that would be designated for future industrial. And this is only a portion of the municipal owned parcel that's along Peninsula Road at the northern end of the town site. And we are only proposing to bring in a portion of that total parcel because that is what the amount of land that would be needed to accommodate future employment growth. We are also proposing to bring in the strip of red colored parcels that are labeled number 3. These lands would be designated for commercial uses, and they are made up of 11 municipally owned lots along the southern side of Peninsula Road. And this is where town staff have identified future commercial development, and those lots have already been subdivided through a plan of subdivision and are close to being development ready. So we are proposing to bring those in for future commercial uses. And then the last parcel is just the existing OPP station, which is identified as number 4. We just felt it was prudent at this time to include it in the settlement area boundary, but that is an existing piece of development. Next slide, please, Jill.
Yep. All right, so I will walk through some of the key policy changes that are included in the June final draft official plan. So first of which, a new section 4.7 has been added, which specifically focuses on housing related topics, including subsection 471 for additional dwelling units. So section 471 has been updated to incorporate recent changes to provincial legislation for additional dwelling units. These were previously referred to as secondary dwelling units in the 2016 official plan. So permissions for up to 2 additional dwelling units or ADUs, we're sometimes referred to, are permitted on a lot which contains a single detached, semi-detached, or townhouse dwelling subject to adequate servicing requirements. So effectively, this would be a total of 3 units permitted on a lot. Under provincial legislation, all municipalities in Ontario are now required to permit 3 units on residential lots within the urban area. So the graphic on the slide here shows some of the different configurations you can have of additional dwelling units. You could have a basement suite, a loft space, in addition to a primary unit, or an additional dwelling unit in an ancillary building or structure like a coach house, for example. Also under section 4.7 is a subsection which addresses tiny homes. So at the outset of the project, the town identified continued interest in supporting the development of tiny homes in Marathon, especially given the recent development like at Poppy Lane. So through the review, we've worked closely with town staff to identify the land use designations where they could be permitted and developed. So in the final draft official plan, it is proposed that tiny homes be permitted wherever a single detached dwelling is permitted, but also subject to comply with the Ontario Building Code, Fire Code, and the town's zoning bylaw. Under section 4.7 is a new section for affordable and attainable housing, and this section really reflects the findings of the housing needs assessment that was completed by WSP last year. So in this new subsection 4.7.2, There are policies that enable the development of and facilitate the availability of a full range of housing types. So that can include anything from, purpose-built rental housing, rent geared to income, and accessible housing to recognize that residents of the town require a range of needs. Policies in this section also include general support for partnerships and funding to facilitate the development of non-market housing. Under a new section 4.2, we have policies to address alternative and renewable energy systems. So this section really clarifies the way that alternative and renewable energy systems are permitted within the town. So specifically, we've identified that larger scale facilities such as wind farms would require an amendment to the town's official plan and would also require implementation of site-specific zoning. Small scale systems are permitted but are restricted from development in the residential, mixed use, institutional, commercial, parks and open space, environmental protection, and future development designations.
Okay, I will introduce the 10 land use designations that are included in the final draft official plan, most of which are carried forward from the town's existing official plan. We just wanted to highlight 3 new designations that have been added, which include mixed use, environmental protection, and future development that I will speak to in the following slides. So the new mixed use designation is shown in this image in red, and it's comprised of lands that are in proximity to Stevens Avenue between Winton and Drake Street, where there is a mix of multi-unit residential and commercial uses that are envisioned to develop over time. And this does reflect a recommendation in the town's waterfront master plan. And we acknowledge also that there may be other areas of the town that are desirable for this type of designation over the next 25 years. So if you could envision multi-unit residential either being in a standalone apartment or on upper stories of a building that has commercial uses on the ground floor, that's generally what we would refer to as mixed use. Next slide. There is a new environmental protection designation added that reflects the significant natural heritage features that are identified by the province, and that includes significant animal habitat, provincially significant wetlands, and other natural landscapes and features that may have local significance in the town. And an example of this is the Hawks Ridge Trail area, which is shown on the map in dark green. Next slide. And the last new designation that's been introduced is a future development designation, and this covers the majority of the waterfront area. So this designation would permit existing uses to continue, but it generally represents lands that have high value and opportunity for future development, obviously reflected in all of the town's investments along the waterfront and the preparation of the waterfront master plan. So this area generally represents opportunities for development in the future, but acknowledges that this area requires future servicing and studies to be completed before any development can take place. So before future development happens here, after those studies are completed and a record of site condition is filed, once the area has been decontaminated from its previous industrial use, the town would undertake an official plan amendment to redesignate this area for the type of development that is desired at that time. Next slide. And lastly, we wanted to highlight that the types of uses that are permitted on lands that have the industrial land use designation have been revised to be consistent with the province's definition of employment areas in the new provincial planning statement 2024. So employment areas are defined now by the province to mean areas for clusters of businesses and economic activities that include manufacturing, research and development in connection with manufacturing, warehousing, goods movement, and associated retail and office uses. So associated or ancillary means that you can't have a standalone retail or office use within an industrial area. It has to be associated with some other type of primary industry like manufacturing, for example. And Jill, I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. So finally, the schedules or maps of the official plan have been updated. So there are 5 schedules that have been prepared in coordination with CGIS. So the first of which are schedules A and B, which illustrate the land use designations within the entire town's municipal boundary. Both of which are shown on the slide here. So Schedule A shows land use in the town's rural area, so focusing on kind of the town, the greater picture, the areas outside the settlement area boundary, and then Schedule B provides a zoom in on the settlement area boundary, so more built up part of town, showing the designations in various colors. Schedule C, natural heritage and development constraints, maps natural features such as wetlands, water courses, and other potential development constraints such as abandoned mine sites, mineral aggregate resources, and natural hazard lands. So there are accompanying policies in the official plan that speak to each of these features, identify them, and any policy requirements that should be reviewed, in preparation of a development application. Schedule D is for groundwater protection, and this illustrates the groundwater protection zones that were identified in the town's groundwater management strategy, which was prepared in 2003 and last updated in 2009. So the varying groundwater protection zones are shown in 3 different colors, zone 1 to 3 in the yellow, orange, and blue. And then in the official plan, section 7.5, groundwater resources and water quality, includes policies that identify specific land uses and activities that may have potential to adversely affect groundwater resources in these zone areas. And finally, Schedule E, wildland fire hazards, as Anita mentioned, illustrates areas of high and extreme potential for wildland fires, and this is based on the various forest types in the area and the provincial data that was available. Section 7.7 of the official plan includes related policies that identify requirements for wildland fire assessments, as well as enabling mitigation standards as well. So all in all, once the new official plan is approved by the ministry, the schedules will also be made available on the town's website alongside the official plan in PDF format. So just to conclude our presentation with next steps and kind of the final stages for the official plan review. So we're well into summer now. So following this statutory public meeting, we'll prepare the final official plan and schedules to incorporate final input received from town council, as well as any comments from members of the community. And just as a reminder, the final draft official plan is available for review at the webpage at the link shown here. We, WSP, will then be issuing that final official plan and schedules for consideration of council adoption. We had noted here on the slide July 20th as a potential date for that council meeting, but I understand that that meeting may be taking place later in July or maybe in early August. That date has yet to be determined. So following adoption of the new official plan by council, the town would then issue a notice of decision. And that adopted official plan and schedules would be sent by the town to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for their final review and approval. That review period is anticipated to take around 120 days. Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing does have that final approval authority over the official plan. They may choose to introduce policy modifications to the official plan, which are non-appealable. But following approval, then the town's new official plan would be in effect. And then to pivot back to the zoning bylaw review, so I mentioned before that July 23rd will be holding a statutory public open house in Marathon to present the draft zoning bylaw. And then similarly to the official plan, a statutory public meeting will be required to present the final draft zoning bylaw to council and the community. Then it kind of depends on ministry approval of the official plan. The zoning bylaw kind of holds until ministry approves the official plan, as that new official plan has to be in effect for council to adopt the new zoning bylaw. So once the OP is approved, the town can move forward with holding a meeting to adopt the new zoning bylaw, and following that would issue a notice of adoption and a 20-day appeal period. And if there's no appeals, the zoning bylaw will be in full force in effect. So looking ahead, we'll continue to be publishing project updates to the town's project website, as well as notices. So there'll be still some more activities on this project happening over the next couple months. So that concludes our presentation today. So on behalf of our WSP and project team, Anita and I just want to extend our thanks again to the town for providing us the opportunity to work on this project. We've really enjoyed working with Tim, with Jamie, and getting to travel to Marathon to get to know the community and see the town. So yeah, we'll be happy to take any questions from members of council and the public. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot, Anita and Jill, and we'll open up the public for questions if they have any, but if you do have any, please come down to the chair and identify yourself and ask the question if you do have any. So, but first off, I'll ask council if they have any questions directly of Anita or Jill.
Yeah, no question. Councillor Greg Balance, thanks for the presentation this morning. Just a quick question for you regarding the mixed use designation. How would that get classified by taxation? If it's mixed use and there's residential and industrial in there, would we go with the lower classification or the higher? Like, how does that get determined?
I believe impact does
Impact
mix
does
this
the assessment for mixed use,
Oh, it's its own bracket
right?
too. Okay,
But with that being said, impact hasn't done a reassessment since 2016, so it would have to be a new build. So if there's new construction or addition to the existing structures within that multi-use facility area, then it'll be a reassessment by impact. Then it'll be provided to the municipality.
okay, awesome, thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor Lee?
Yeah, Councillor Ray, like, just a question. I think you identified that we're sort of at that two case scenario, two roads diverging. If when the mine goes forward and there is that need for new land, you sort of identified we can make an amendment to the OP. Just could you walk me through that process a little bit and how that would work for the town?
Sure. Jill, would you like me to answer that one?
Yeah, if you could take that, Anita,
Sure.
please. Thank you.
Sure. So through this official plan review, if the province does accept the proposed settlement area expansion, those vacant lands would already be brought into the town's settlement area through this process. So those are vacant residential, industrial, and future commercial lands that the town would then have the ability to develop as needs arise. Tim can speak to the process of land development, what would be required in terms of preparing the land with servicing and any future studies, and of course, acquiring developer interest. But if the town, for whatever reason, exceeds those lands in terms of its development needs, then council can initiate another official plan amendment process to consider bringing in new lands into the settlement area expansion. And you don't have to wait for a full official plan review to do that. Council can initiate an official plan amendment just for the settlement area boundary and that portion of the official plan. And you would be working with ministry staff and having public meetings like this one with proposed lands that would be brought in. So a similar to this process, but you wouldn't be opening up the entire official plan for review necessarily.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Balance?
Again, just another generic question though. If we were to kickstart the development of those lands, would that then issue an impact assessment? Like, would that force impact to then reassess the whole community if we're building more homes and bringing in more dwellings to the?
So maybe I can answer that. So we've been after impact for the last decade to do the reassessment. So the assessment, whether they redo it in 26, 27 and make that public announcement, it won't affect any new development. New development will be built based on the cost of that dwelling, so through the building permit acquisition. And then the assessment will give back to municipality. So it'll be adjusted accordingly, because if that home is adjusted as $500,000, say, for example, well, they can't assess it at $500,000 based on our scenario of 3%. So there'll have to be an adjustment through the treasury, through impact, to be reflective of the existing homes within our community. So we're hoping impact does the reassessment based on the overall value, because then we'll have to adjust our actual levy, which is 3% right now. So because it hasn't been adjusted, there's going to be a big variance if there's 100 homes built up on the hill. Tim, did I get that correct?
I would defer to your experience on the taxation.
So then with that being said, then your worship, is it in your best interest to have the assessment before the homes are built or post the build, those builds?
You can't assess it until they have a building permit withdrawn from the municipalities to say, I'm going to build 10 dwellings, 20 dwellings, 50 dwellings, and then those values would be addressed through the building CBO's office, saying I'm going to build 10 dwellings in Bell Lake Heights at X amount of dollars, 300, 500,000. We know the cost of building is roughly $650 a square foot or higher in Marathon. So with that being said, if you're looking at a 1,000 square foot house, it's $600,000 roughly to build that home. Well, with the acquisition of land and the cost of building, then the assessment is going to be based on 600,000. Well, that homeowner, based on our levy at 3% on every 100,000, will be paying, $9,000 to $10,000 in taxes. Well, the guy across the street might only be paying $3,000. So there has to be an adjustment made, and that's where we have to go back to impact and look at the assessment based on the building permit. There's a whole bunch of things that have to be addressed when that build happens. So that's my belief.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you.
We need impact to change the assessment.
And it seems like there needs to be a different rollout of how the assessments, like when big builds happen.
Yeah, it's been exactly. So we've been banging on impact's door at every opportunity to get the assessments to be addressed, and it just hasn't happened in a decade. Anybody from the audience have a question? Everything good? So going back to what you said to both Anita and Jill, so the 23rd is still going to be the open house regardless of the council meeting prior to that. That could be changed from the 20th to a future date because it's just the process of having the open house for more public input. Oh, sorry, Tim.
I'll jump in there. The July 23rd is for the zoning bylaw open house.
Okay.
The July 20th meeting that Jill mentioned, which where the 20th meeting is not happening now, it's being changed.
Yeah.
But that meeting that was referenced in the presentation is for council adoption of this official plan that's been presented pending any modifications that had to be made after this meeting.
Okay.
So that the July 23rd meeting is separate. It's to review the draft zoning bylaw that has been created and get public input on that zoning bylaw.
That's right. Through your worship, we already had the public open house for the official plan in late May. So Jill and I were in the community with Tim, and we had some visitors to chambers where we had display boards set up and had lots of good conversations. So this meeting follows that public open house as the last step of public engagement under the Planning Act before council can consider adopting the official plan.
Yeah, you identified 10 members of community. Today we have 4, which is unusual. We typically don't have many more than 1 or 2. So thanks for coming. Most people are not really interested in official plans or zoning amendments to bylaws until it's affecting them directly. Then there's always somebody that's concerned about the impact it has. But thanks a lot for your. Sorry.
Can I just take the opportunity there? The open house on July 23rd for the zoning bylaw. It gets more into the details on these changes that are coming. So reduced dwelling unit sizes, making it easier to develop on a vacant lot. The details around adding a tiny home in your backyard or a basement suite or just the three units as of right on a property. So if anybody watching is interested in any type of that development, come to that open house. You can get the information as it's being developed. You may have good comments that can contribute to developing those policies. So just an opportunity to advertise that open house one more time.
Awesome. So within the property standards right now, you have a distance within. So what they're saying, and we agreed to this council, is to look at the extra building in the backyards. You're now going to amend those structural difference between fence line to fence line, the distance between there, because you're going to be taking more of the yard up. Right?
Yeah, so some of the changes that are being proposed are a little more allowable lot coverage for the third unit.
Right.
You still can't have excessive lot coverage with a garage, but if you're converting the garage, there's some forgiveness on the lot coverage.
Sure. So if you're putting a garage with a loft above it,
yeah,
very changes as well. Good.
Ultimately, it's really trying to align with provincial interests on building more housing, getting more housing into existing lands, and making it easier for people to develop.
Sure. Councillor, yes,
Yeah, I just think, like, you know, we saw the mind boom the last time we had it, and obviously allowing more people to, you know, benefit from the mind boom in the sense of creating additional rental spaces in their own properties. That's allowed under that bylaw, right? This isn't just additional suites for, say, you know, in-laws or family. This would be additional suites that could be used for rentals, in terms of, you know, having more people in the community without building more buildings.
It's just building dwelling units, getting dwelling units, whether they're used for permanent or short-term, or it's just building approved dwelling units that are usable.
To that point though, no Airbnbs? Like, would someone be-
That's separate, so short-term rentals is a topic to be looked at, and it wouldn't be covered under zoning bylaw, that we would have a specific bylaw regarding short-term rentals.
Okay, cool.
everybody satisfied? Questions? The presentation? Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into the official plan to date, and people don't realize the amount of work that's being done behind the scenes always in regards to these things, and Tim's put a lot of time and effort, so you both, Anita and your complete staff. So for that, I thank you, and of course, look forward to completion and submission to the ministry to get final approval for this. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you, Your
everybody.
Worship.
Thank you, Your
Council.
Worship. Okay, have a good morning.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks.
care.
I need a mover and second to adjourn the meeting at the hour of 9:54. Councillor Balance, Councillor Lake, thank you very much. All in
So
favor?
Rick, the provincial government